is Histories and Mysteries. I'm your host, Ashley, and this is
Jessica. And on this week's episode, Ashley's going to be talking about Madame LaLaurie, which is super messed up. Just an FYI for everybody. I had to not do one of my people this week so that we didn't have like a double messed up episode. But on that note, I am doing Jesse James, who's, after my research, I've concluded is pretty messed up, but not as bad.
Yeah, Madame LaLaurie is pretty bad. And welcome back. Well, I mean, I guess for you guys, we didn't go anywhere, but for us, we haven't recorded since December.
Yeah, it's been crazy being off for 2 months, and obviously we've had some hiccups today.
Yeah, the technology changed in the 2 months that we were gone, but we got it together.
Finally, thankfully.
Yeah, it only took us 42 minutes. Goodness, but we took a bit of a hiatus because we both had bebés, as we had talked about on the podcast before we took our hiatus, and now we have had them both, and mine's sitting in here with me, so if you hear any little squeaks, that's him.
I shipped mine off to my father in the living room.
Nice.
Yeah. My husband is not home yet, almost 2 hours past when he is usually home because of lovely Canadian weather.
That sounds awful. Although I do miss snow, but like just for a little bit. I just want it for a little bit and then I don't want it anymore.
It's nice if you don't have to drive in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you can like hunker down.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good winter so far. It's just the last, today, it was just really bad. Like, you couldn't see the roads, apparently. So
that's awful.
Super fun.
And you get your nice long Canadian maternity leave of a year, right?
Yep. It's pretty good so far. I'm really happy it's a whole year off, but
yeah,
I feel terrible for you because you do not get that.
I do not. I am in America, so we get, so my company gives me a week off for maternity leave. And then through FMLA and short-term disability, I can take up to 3 months. So I'm taking the 3 months to be with my little guy. And then I'll be heading back to depending on COVID, I might just be heading back to my home office.
Yeah, which will be nice because then you can still be home with him, right?
Yeah, I can be home. Oh, he's getting mad. I can be home with him, if I have someone else. So if my parents are here, my mom can come in and help me. But otherwise, I'd still have to bring him to daycare just because if I have meetings and stuff, I can't, have a crying baby in the background.
Why not? I mean, it's kind of like a cat. Everybody loves babies.
True. Yeah, if he keeps getting fussy, I'm going to go bring him out to my husband. He had to run to get us groceries, but I think he's back now, but I think he'll be okay. Yeah. So one of the things I found out that I wanted to talk to you about was my mother-in-law came down for a couple weeks to help us out right when we had Oliver, and she was telling me that her mother met Ted Bundy.
Oh yeah, I was going to remind you at the end, but I'm glad you remembered now.
Yeah, so she didn't know him, but she was a nurse and she worked at for I don't know if she was volunteering at the prison to help out or if she worked at the prison, I'm not really sure. And Ted Bundy had come through her prison on a transfer, he wasn't staying there, he was transferring through that prison, and she had to give him some medicine. And she said, so it was just a quick interaction, so it's not a great story, but she just said that when she met him, he was really nice and personable, but the hair on the back of her neck stood up, and she was he just felt evil. Yeah, super creepy.
That's crazy.
I know, and that was I
don't want to say I'm jealous, but
yeah. And I think that's the thing that fascinates so many people with Ted Bundy is just how he can be so charming and personable, and there's just that like sinister underbelly, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. Because that was the biggest part of him, right? It was that he was so personable, and
Yeah.
like that's wild to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Wild.
But speaking of wild, I'm gonna get into my Madame LaLaurie story, and trigger warning up and down the coast. Like, this is
Yeah, no kidding.
awful. It's awful. There's just no other word for it. It's fucking
No.
awful. So I got my sources from history.com, All That's Interesting, an article
Ooh,
in Vice, and Ghost City Tours.
nice. I forgot that we had to give our references, so
It's been a while. You're rusty.
Oh, it's been 2 months, and we basically recorded like 5 episodes in one day before we went on hiatus.
We did.
That was rough.
It was a lot of recording that day.
Yeah, and then I think like less than a week later, I had my baby. So
Yeah, you had yours pretty soon after that.
December 31st.
Ooh. Yeah, and mine wasn't until February 8th, so.
Poor girl.
And he was 41 weeks and 2 days, and we had to induce because he was not coming out.
Oh, jeeps. Yeah, I was, oh my goodness, 38 weeks, I believe. But I was also induced just because they anticipated on her being bigger, which she was, because it ended up being a C-section after 33 hours of labor. So
Ew,
that was fun.
that sounds awful.
Yeah, it wasn't enjoyable, but the end result is perfect. So
yes, exactly.
yeah. Okay, now on to your story.
On to super fucked upness. And
yay!
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move my and then I'm just gonna start. Oop, I guess I hit record. Okay. It like covered over it and then I just like record. Okie dokie. So before I get started, I got a new mic, so hopefully this sounds good. If not, oh well, because I bought it, so it's mine. So I got my sources from history.com, All That's Interesting, Vice, and Ghost City Tours.
Ooh, I like that you used All That's Interesting.
Yeah, that's your jam.
I know. I think I used it. I used most of it for my story.
Nice.
Oh yes, they're my go-to. I love them.
All right. So Marie Delphine McCarty, she goes by Delphine, was born in 1787 in New Orleans. At this time, Louisiana was not part of the United States. It wasn't until the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. So most of her young life, Louisiana was owned by Spain.
Okay, I was just about to ask that. I'm like, this is a stupid question.
Yeah, it went back and forth between Spain and France. So, but at the time, Spain was in control from like 1763 to 1800. So,
okay.
So she grew up mostly in Spanish-owned New Orleans. And as she grew older, she was known in social circles, and she was a New Orleans Creole socialite. So she was pretty fancy. She had an uncle who was a governor and a cousin who was a mayor. So they were a pretty well-known family and a pretty well-off family. In 1791, though, there was the Haitian Revolution, which was basically an uprising of southern United States and Caribbean enslaved people. And at the time, the Caribbean and like Haiti was very closely entwined with New Orleans and like I think the slave trade and different goods and services that were traded back and forth. So they were pretty entwined. So once they got wind of this revolution, they started to get nervous themselves. And I'm sure, as you know, when people get scared, they tend to be horrible people.
Usually.
Yeah. So
history has told us that
exactly.
many times.
Yes. So they got scared and decided to allow that to justify harsher punishments for their enslaved people. And one of the ways they would do this is they would put the heads of enslaved people on pikes and display them from the center of New Orleans to the countryside.
Oh, so some Vlad the Impaler shit.
Yeah. I think they read his book there, and they're like, yeah, this sounds great.
Yeah, here's some good scare tactics. Let's
Yeah,
do this today.
exactly. And they would also
Horrible.
dangle enslaved bodies from the city gates as a warning to other enslaved people not to rebel.
Lovely.
Yeah.
What
So this
lovely
is
people.
exactly. So this is what Delphine grew up in. Also, it was rumored that her uncle was killed by one of his enslaved people. So she kind of grew up with this fear and hatred, like extra fear and hatred. Not that that dismisses anything she did.
No.
She was married 3 times. The first 2 men died. They didn't die anything like suspiciously. Like she didn't kill them or anything. One was actually in Haiti when he died. So, but her third marriage was to Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie, which is where she gets her Madame LaLaurie. He was a doctor, and he was quite a bit younger than her, so he kind of just let her do her thing. And one of the things she did was purchase the 3-story mansion in the middle of New Orleans. And again, he kind of stayed out of the way. So it was basically her own house that she had and ran.
Didn't Nicolas Cage own this house at some point?
Yeah, I have that in here. Fun fact.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, it's just a random fact that he did. Apparently, he owned it, but he only owned it for like a year. His goal was to stay in it and write a scary story while he was in it, but he never actually stayed there, and he ended up only having money troubles after he owned it, so he sold it a year later.
Nice.
Yeah. So people would always comment in the streets how polite LaLaurie was to her enslaved people, and how nice she was. And at one point, she did free 2 of her enslaved people. I'm not sure why. They didn't really get into why she freed them, but she did at one point. So, this kind of made her seem in society's eyes like she was a really nice lady. Little did they know she was not.
She was all psychopath.
Yeah. I have written in here, little did they know that behind closed doors, she was not only not polite to people, but she was pure evil and ran a house of hell.
Ooh.
So dramatic.
It's so good. Write a book.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, as happens in high society, rumors started to swirl about maybe she wasn't as nice as people thought she was. You know how things kind of get out and then swirl rumor to rumor. And back then, high society women had like nothing better to do than gossip.
Exactly. Oh, okay. Wait. Okay. Have you seen Bridgerton?
Yes, I loved it so much.
Okay. I binged it in like 2 days.
It was so good.
Okay, without spoiling it, did you guess who what's her face was before it was revealed?
Yeah,
Me
I did.
too.
Did you?
Yeah.
I did when they I think it was her reaction sometimes to the way
Yes.
she was trying to figure out who she was, and just her
Yeah.
reaction. I was like,
Yeah. I kind of got it when they had mentioned about the party
yeah.
and certain people being not in attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I used to read like period romance novels. I freaking
Yeah.
love them. And that's
Well,
basically what this was.
okay, so when you mentioned like high society women love to gossip, it just reminded me of that show.
Yeah.
And unpopular opinion maybe, I thought there were too many sex scenes. Like,
Jessica,
I
go
feel like
home. What is wrong with you?
I thought it was a little overdone. Like, yes, they might have been nice, but I feel like they were a little too much. And it's funny because the author said there wasn't enough. And Kyle came in like once or twice while I was watching the show a couple times, and all it was sex scenes that he walked in on. So
He's like, what are you watching?
yeah, he's like, what smut is this? Not actually, but I'm sure he was thinking it.
I'm sure. Well, have you ever read like a romance novel?
No.
Oh,
No.
I used to read them all
I
the
always
time, and
read
there
the
is,
fantasies.
yeah, they're really good, but yeah, there's a lot of sex in them, and they're
Yeah.
always, it's always like, you know, the main guy, he's always either like dangerous or like a
Yeah.
rake or, you know, whatever, and the girl's always so innocent and sweet, and he like
Yeah.
teaches her. It's every period romance novel, that's how it
It's
is, and
so
I just
funny.
freaking love it.
Oh my goodness. I don't get me wrong, I'm not like a prude or anything. Like sex is fine, obviously, but like sometimes it's just a little too much.
You know what show I watched that I didn't think had enough? Have you
What?
watched Good Girls?
No.
Oh, it's so good. And one of the main characters, he's like the gang member, so he's like the bad guy, but he's so hot. He's played by Manny Montana, and God, he's gorgeous.
Okay, I'm
And they
looking
have a
him up.
couple like sex scenes in it that like they really make you like, they build it up and build it up. And then they like don't show a damn thing. Like they don't even show them kissing. I'm just like, no.
He's not even attractive. He looks like a kid.
Oh, he does not, and he is gorgeous.
Okay, he's like a stick.
I like sticks.
I like chubby men.
My type used to be like real tall and thin. My husband's short and like stocky, so totally opposite. But yeah, I used to love real tall, thin guys. But you
No.
have to watch him too. It's like his mannerisms and like the way he talks and stuff. You know what I mean?
It's like Pedro Pascal.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he looks like a Neanderthal to look at, but then when you get his personality and everything,
Mm-hmm.
he's just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yep.
oh
He's
my.
exactly like that. And then in the show, he has like a neck tattoo, which I'm not a
I,
huge fan of, but
I
like
am. On certain
just,
men, I love them.
it just plays it. It's just, oh, but the show's really good.
Oh,
You should watch it. It's a really good show.
okay.
Anyway, so Madame LaLaurie.
Back to her.
So yeah, slowly but surely rumors started to spread that maybe she was not as nice as they thought. They were just rumors, so she still was accepted into society. But I'm sure it was
Damn.
different when people were like talking about her behind her back.
Them
Uh
sluts.
some yeah, bitches. Except that they
Sorry.
should have been talking about her because she was a horrible human.
I like that I go for them sluts instead of dem bitches, which I should have gone for.
Damn bitches.
Oh
Um
dear.
So some of the rumors that started to swirl were that LaLaurie chained her 70-year-old cook to the oven and starved her. She was allowing her husband to practice Haitian voodoo medicine on some of them, and that she would punish her daughters if they tried to help those who were enslaved. And almost all of those turned out to be true. The only one that they don't have like actual like evidence for is the Haitian voodoo medicine. As far as I know, they didn't say anything about the husband being involved. Although for what she was doing, I feel like it would be hard for him not to know what she was doing, but who knows?
Well, he could have just turned a blind eye, right?
Yeah, exactly. So again, like I said, those rumors, two of them were seen to be true. Another more substantiated rumor said that one man was so scared of her punishment that he jumped from a third-story window to kill himself rather than live through her wrath. And one of the reasons why they think that is true is because after that happened, LaLaurie cemented that window that he jumped out of, and in her house, that window is still cemented to this day. So
Wow.
they think that one may have been true. The other one that probably was definitely true because she broke a law, so it's like on record. She had a 12-year-old enslaved girl who was brushing LaLaurie's hair, and she pulled a little too hard. And it said that LaLaurie flew into a rage and started to whip her. And instead of continuing to endure LaLaurie's punishment, the 12-year-old girl, I mean, how bad would it be for a 12-year-old girl to do this? Climbed on top of the mansion and jumped off the roof to her death.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Some of the neighbors saw LaLaurie burying the little girl's body and called the police, because apparently New Orleans did have a law that you couldn't like super mistreat enslaved people. Like a little mistreatment was okay, but they drew a line. I don't know where that line was, but there was a line apparently.
I was gonna say, what line?
Yeah, I have no idea, but apparently there was a line and she crossed it. And so the police came, and she was fined $300 and had to sell 9 of her enslaved people, but she bought them all back afterwards and nobody cared. So
Okay, let's see. What year is this?
this was probably probably 1830s.
1830s? Okay. Uno momento. I want to see how much $300 actually was.
Yes, I should have done that. Good call.
Oh, this only goes from 1913.
Well, what would it be from 1913 then? I mean, that's kind of close. Well, I guess it's
okay. So let me see. Oh no. Where's the calculator? There it is. 2,843 times 3 equals. It's almost $8,600.
Okay. So
it's a lot of money.
Better sounding than 300, but for a life, I don't know. Probably some jail time should have been had, but
yeah.
So the true terror of her work wasn't discovered until April 10th, 1834, when her mansion caught on fire.
Ooh. Oh.
And for the first time, people entered the attic of her home. Yeah. So there's kind of 2 different versions of this. One of the stories says that it was like rescuers that came in, like firefighters and stuff like that. One of the stories says that it was actually people in her neighborhood, because they said, one of the stories said that she was basically trying to save her like jewelry and furniture, and the neighbors were coming in and trying to help her, and then they heard like moans and crying coming from the attic, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's people up there, like we have to go help them. And that's what happened. Like I said, another story said it was just the firemen that went up and looked. But either way, they found, when they came in at first, they found, remember that rumor about her cook that was chained to the oven?
Yeah.
That was true.
Oh.
And they found her starving to death, and she admitted that she was the one that set the fire, because rather than basically starve to death, she wanted to try and either die or escape.
Wow. Like, why would you, like, the fact that you'd want to burn alive as opposed to just starve to death, right? Like, what's the lesser of both evils?
Yeah, I don't know. So like I said, either they heard the people in the attic, or another story said that the cook led them to the attic and said, hey, there's people up here, can you help them? Either way, when they got there, the cruelty of her was on full display. They said that the stench was overwhelming, and the images would be something that they would never forget. So what I'm going to say next is really, really bad. So trigger warning for anybody. This is disgusting. And I do want to say that I think a lot of this has been embellished upon throughout the years. I talk a little bit later about what probably actually they found, but the kind of urban legend around this is as follows. They found piles of corpses and limbs. Yes, limbs. They found alive enslaved victims with their eyes gouged out.
Sorry.
Eyes gouged out. Feces put in their mouth and then sewn shut.
Sorry, what was put in their mouths?
Feces.
Ew.
and then sewn shut.
Ugh.
Fingernails
Ugh.
were torn off. Ears were torn off.
Oh, I just got the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. There was
Ugh.
some with flayed skin. It was said, this is the worst part coming up. So if you don't want
Really?
to hear it, yeah, go ahead, 30 seconds.
Oh my goodness.
It was said that one woman had her skin peeled off in spirals to make her look like a caterpillar. Another woman had her bones broken and reset so that she was in the shape of a crab. Another had their intestines torn out and knotted around their waist.
Oh my goodness.
And some had holes in their heads with spoons next to them that she used to stir their brains with.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Tell me. Okay. I know it's going to sound terrible, but tell me they were all dead because.
No.
No.
They
Oh
were
no.
most of those that I said were alive, except the
Oh
intestines
no.
around the waist. I feel like he was probably dead,
Oh
but the other
no.
ones were alive.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'd rather they be dead.
Yes, than have to go
That's
through that pain. And I'm sure the
horrible.
people with the
Yeah.
holes in their head probably were dead too, I would think.
Yeah, probably. Or just,
So
yeah. Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
So the article from Vice said that the truth was probably somewhere less than that, but that she probably was still a monster. So in reality, it was probably as follows. They did say that they found them chained up and starving and scarred. Some were hanging by their necks and badly mutilated. One paper at the time claimed that there was a man with a hole in his head filled with maggots.
Oh.
They were chained in iron collars with inward-facing spikes. But apparently that most of that was like normal New Orleans punishment at the time.
My goodness.
So some typical New Orleans punishment that didn't have to do with Madame LaLaurie, but I wanted to put this in here just so you can kind of gauge how that time period was in general. Obviously, we've heard of them being whipped. They would put iron masks on them so that they couldn't eat. And then the collars, again, like I said, the collars with the spikes were pretty widely used. But apparently LaLaurie went further than people at the time went because the people who found them were shocked. And they were angry and she was scared of the crowd. And so she actually fled to Paris. And never really had to deal with any sort of punishment or backlash for this.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. There's a couple different rumors about her because nobody really knows what happened to her after that. So a couple people think she fled to Paris and then changed her name and moved back to New Orleans and just kind of continued doing what she was doing. Some people, and this is probably more likely what happened, thinks that she moved to Paris and then some of her family met her out there and they all lived in Paris and she ended up just dying in Paris. In 1941, they actually found a plate in a cemetery in Paris that said Madame LaLaurie. It was in French, so Madame LaLaurie, I think this is like an AKA Marie Delphine McCarty. So they do believe that she died and was buried there. And some people think that some of these stories over the years had been entwined with stories from Elizabeth Bathory.
Yes.
So they think that, some of the stuff that she did got placed on Madame LaLaurie. So,
Yeah,
and
because I
aren't you
wanted to
doing?
cover her. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be doing her later.
Yeah.
So moving on from the horribleness of it, the LaLaurie Mansion still stands in New Orleans. There are several ghost tours that you can take, and it's said to be one of the most haunted houses in the French Quarter of New Orleans. And I feel like that's saying a lot because New Orleans is like super haunted.
Yeah.
People who are near the house say that they feel a negative energy wash over them, and it makes sense with the cruelty that was suffered there. And it actually didn't stop with LaLaurie. So Years later, the mansion was converted into apartments, and in 1894, one of the tenants was found brutally murdered in his room. His belongings were ransacked, but nothing of value was missing. Although I'm not really sure how they can figure that out. But anyway, apparently one of his friends had mentioned that he was having issues with the sprites in his apartment.
Sorry.
I know. And that he claimed there was a demon in the house who wasn't going to rest until he met his end.
I mean, the demon makes sense. But
Yeah. I mean, after all the evil that was seen there.
yeah. Or he was using a Ouija board.
Yeah, it could be Jessica.
He called on you know who.
The mansion was also converted into a girls' school for a little while. And at first it was a mixed school, and then it turned into just an all-girls POC school, person of color.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And reports were came to light of physical assault on the girls, and they would have like scratches and bruises on their arms, but there was like no one causing them. And when they were like asked like who is doing this, they would just say that woman, because they were younger. It was like a middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So some people think it was the ghost of Madame LaLaurie and that she still haunts that place. One of the Ghost City tours said that a medium went there and she felt like an evil presence, but she did not feel Madame LaLaurie. She said if she was there, she's long gone at this point, but there is something evil in that house.
Oh. Ashley, if we ever blow up, like our podcast blows up, not
I thought
us.
you meant like literally blow up, and I was like, Jessica, why are we blowing up?
Like if our podcast, if we ever get famous, which like I hope we do, because that'd be great. But if not, but whatever. We'll get there eventually. We should meet up in New Orleans. And go on this ghost tour.
That would be amazing. And actually, I might be going to New Orleans like the end of the year, depending on how the pandemic's doing. But one of Cody's best friends is getting married, and she's starting off in New Orleans. So hopefully the pandemic has calmed down a little bit by October and we can go on this trip. And
nice.
I don't think Cody would want to do that with me, but yes, someday you and I will have to go do that.
Yes, we should.
It'd be so freaky.
We need to like meet.
Yeah.
And then our babies can meet, and then they can fall in love and then marry each other.
And they're both little redheads.
I know, they'd have such cute little babies.
I'll let Oliver know he's already claimed.
Perfect. I mean, it's perfect.
It is. Yeah, he has red hair, but it's just like little wispies, little wispies of hair.
Yeah, Evie's a little ginger, so.
Well, it makes sense because Cody, my husband, he's a ginge, like hardcore ginge, and his mom is a ginge too. And I'm blonde, but I'm like fake blonde. But I mean, like my hair is lighter. It's not as light as this, but
yeah, no. My husband and I, like, Kyle's a brunette, and I am blonde.
You're blonde?
I'm blonde.
Do you dye your hair?
Yeah, I dye it darker.
It looks really natural on you.
Yeah, I have darker roots, so I always used to say it was like a dirty blonde color.
That's what mine is.
And it had like some natural red tinge to it, but it wasn't like anything profound.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the redhead comes from Kyle's side because his grandpa's a redhead and two of his nieces are redheads. So,
little redheads are so cute.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, back to your story.
That was it.
Oh. Perfect.
That was the end.
All right. Well, it was a great story. I mean, like, it wasn't a great story, but like, you did a good job with it.
Thank you. Yes, I know what you're saying. Okay. And they actually talked about it on American Horror Story on one of the seasons. I can't remember which season. They have one of the characters playing Madame LaLaurie, and they have her like house, and then it comes back, and like Angela Bassett ends up there as her like hell. It was interesting. It was pretty cool. If you haven't seen that season, go check it out. I can't remember what season it is, but I'm sure you can look it up.
I haven't seen any of the seasons.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah, I know. I haven't watched it. I should watch it. I'd probably find it interesting.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. I have this problem where if somebody tells me to watch something because they really like it, or if it's something that's really popular, then I'm like, no, I'm not going to watch it until like years later when I have nothing else to watch and I'm bored. So I'm actually surprised I watched Bridgerton when I did because I wasn't going to.
Are
But
you one
I'm
of those
very
people that's like, I liked the band before they were popular?
no, but ironically, I did that the other day. I was I don't remember what band it was, but it was a moment of, yeah, I liked them before they were popular. Because like one of their songs is really popular right now or something. It's like, yep, I listened to them before people started liking them.
You're so cool and
Now I'm
rad.
really frustrated because I don't remember who it was, but whatever. It is what it is.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so I am doing Jesse James.
Yeah, tell me all about him.
So I thought he was just a cowboy outlaw. I didn't realize half the shit that he did.
Yeah, I don't really know
So
much about him. I know he's a cowboy outlaw, like you said, but that's about it.
yeah, I was shocked when I read half the stuff I read, but so I got my resources from All That's Interesting,
Of course.
history.com, of course, and a website called Whiz Past.
Ooh.
Yeah, so those were my articles. So he was born Jesse Woodson James on September 5th, 1847 in Missouri. Interestingly, and something I didn't know, was that Jesse's biological father, Robert, was a Baptist preacher and he owned slaves.
Oh.
So we got a little slave intertwining here.
Mm-hmm.
He was also looking for the next big thing that would make him rich. And I mean, who wasn't back then, right?
Right. Oops, I hit my microphone. Okay, sorry.
So Robert James originally lived in Kentucky and he had a hemp farm, which didn't really pan out the way that he had hoped. Because when do things ever pan out for these people involved in these stories? You never hear of it when they work out.
Right.
Then Robert moved to Missouri and decided to get into the cotton business. He owned slaves there and he owned 100 acres of land.
Okay.
Of course, this also didn't work out.
Oh, no.
So he packed up his things and decided to give the gold rush a try in California.
Did that not work out as well?
No, it did not. He died.
Oh, geez, that really didn't work out.
No, in 1850, at the age of 32,
Oh my God.
Robert died, never becoming the millionaire he had hoped to become.
Oh, that's going to be me too.
Most of us.
Yes.
At this time, Robert's wife moved back to the family farm with her two young children, Frank and Jesse James. And she remained there only a couple. Oh, that's wrong. Where she remarried a couple of years later.
Can we talk about how, like, okay, Jesse James is a really cool name, and then his poor brother is Frank James.
Right? I know. Jesse James goes really well together.
It
and then she's like,
does.
Frank.
Frank James. Poor Frank.
What a poor guy. Poor guy. The names back then were wild. So, like, oh, yeah. Okay. Where am I? Okay, so she remarried a couple of years after their dad croaked.
Oh.
And this sentence reads, 1850s Missouri was right next to the opening act of America's Civil War.
Ooh, you should write a book too.
This wasn't my doing.
Oh, okay. Well, you're not that cool then.
No, I had to I directly quoted that because it was so good.
That's a real good line.
Yeah. As stated in previous episodes, I don't really know a lot about American history, and like specific details. So this next part doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, considering the Civil War didn't start until 1861. But here we go.
Okay.
Sorry, no, that didn't make sense because it said 1850s Missouri. It was right next to the opening act of America's Civil War. But then the Civil War didn't start until 1861. So how is the 1850s Missouri beside 1861? It's not.
Maybe they just meant that it was like starting, like the strife and the like,
right?
The tension was building.
What a silly sentence. It started out so well and then it just didn't work out for us. So it states it had to do with the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which basically allowed each territory to vote as to whether they would be declared into the Union as a free or a slave state.
Okay.
So a free state or a slave state.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska voted to be a free state.
Yay!
Kudos to you. However, Kansas was on the edge of going either way.
Boo.
Yeah. Boo, Kansas. Boo. It was the fear at the time by Missouri slaveholders that if Kansas voted to be a free state, that their slaves would run there instead.
Yeah.
Because why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
With all that being said, and I guess history being history, Jesse James grew up in one of the most pro-slavery countries in the state.
Oh, goodness.
Yep. The James family were slave owners themselves, so they had sympathy for pro-slavery raiders.
Oh, of course.
Yep. Apparently, there was a fight that lasted 12 years here between pro and anti-slavers in a period known as Bleeding Kansas.
Wow.
What a great title. And this lasted until the end of the Civil War in 1865.
Jeez.
Honestly, your country was cray-cray.
I mean, was. Listen, people, if you're ever trying to take away someone else's rights, you're going to end up on the wrong side of history, okay?
Exactly. You're going to end up being the bad people.
Yes.
Wild raiders would go around and just slaughter people, like innocent people.
Cool.
What the heck? They would hand, lynch, and scalp people. What does hand mean? They would hand?
Did you write this at 2 a.m?
No, oh God, no. I go to bed by 11 o'clock and then I'm out. I actually just said to Kyle the other day that I miss staying awake till 2 a.m. sometimes.
Gross. I go to bed at 9, but that's because I have to get up and do. So Cody does like the first half of the night feedings, and then I do the second half of the night. So I have to get up at like 3 or 4. So I go to bed.
Oh yeah, no, it's just me.
Yeah, thankfully Cody still has paternity leave for another 3 weeks, and then it's gonna be just me for a couple months until I go back to work.
Yeah, no, it's just me, except on the weekends. Kyle will wake up the first feed just because like he's working, so I don't want him having to get up.
Yeah.
To like feed the baby if he has to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Yeah.
So he does it on the weekends, which is really nice, which is so helpful for me. And last night I felt really bad because we crawled into bed and I was so tired. And Evie is such a good baby that bath night, we bring her up at 9:30, we bathe her, I feed her, she's asleep by 11. Non-bath night, we bring her up at 10, she's asleep by 11 because I feed her and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last night she just like was not calming down and she was just screaming, so Kyle brought her into the other room to like into her nursery to change her because she sleeps in our room for right now. And she just was not calming down. And so he stayed in there with her and I accidentally passed out. And the poor guy comes back into our room at midnight after he's finally gotten her to sleep to me snoring away in bed. I felt so bad. But I was so tired last night. I'm like, I can't do this.
That's Oliver Knightley. He just screams. He's got his witching hour.
Oh, no. Evie's such a good baby. Like, she's so, so good. Like, we get her to sleep by 11 and she's up by, like, between, like, 5 and 7.
Well, everybody told me that your first baby was supposed to be, like, super easy, especially boys. And that is not the case. Mr. Oliver is very unhappy with
Aw.
his situation in life, apparently.
Oh, man. That's too bad. No, I'm very grateful that my baby is so good. She was a bad pregnancy, but she's a good baby.
See, I had a super easy pregnancy, so I feel like it's like getting back at me. Like,
Yeah,
you had a
exactly.
super easy pregnancy, and now here's a baby that probably has colic. Have fun.
Oh, poor guy.
I mean, I love him to death, but he definitely cries a lot.
Yeah, Evie had her shots today, and they
Aw.
were horrible to listen to because my
Yeah.
dad thankfully came to the appointment with me, so he dealt with her while they gave her shots, and I just turned around because I didn't want to see it happen. I am not afraid of needles, but I just, when it involves my baby, no thank you.
Yeah.
So I turned around and stared at the wall and cried.
Oh.
So she's slept a lot today, but she's also getting like to be really, really fussy.
Mhm.
So we gave her some Tylenol, but like I just occasionally hear her screaming downstairs and I feel so bad, but she's in a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
But
I
we
cried
gave her,
when Oliver had his circumcision, so I feel you on that.
yeah, it's sad.
They're like, they came back, they're like, he did so good. And I was like, I didn't.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right. So again, I don't understand what the sentence means, but basically they would lynch and scalp people.
That's disgusting.
The raiders. And they would do this to like civilians, very innocent people that, just it's horrible. Jesse James's stepfather was actually tortured and hung up in a tree until he passed out. And the reason that happened was because the raiders wanted to get information from him.
Ugh.
And his stepdad actually suffered mental damage from this
Oh, shit.
incident. Yeah.
Wow.
And at the age of 16, during this incident, Jesse was also allegedly lashed for information, even though he hadn't been involved in anything up to that point.
Wow.
And perhaps due to this violent act against him, Jesse joined the Confederate band of soldiers now that he was old enough to fight.
Oh, that's the wrong side.
Yeah. See, and I always thought that like he was on the good side of history other than just being like a badass cowboy. But like after doing this research, I'm like, no, he was a bad man.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. Frank, his brother, joined a guerrilla group that slaughtered an estimated 200 civilians in a raid.
So it's just an all-around great family.
Yeah. And then Jesse then eventually also joined this guerrilla group with his brother, and he participated in the Centralia massacre in Missouri.
That sounds bad.
Yes. And for those of you who do not know what that was,
Me.
it was me too. It was where 24 unarmed Union soldiers were captured and executed on September 27th, 1864, by a group that Jesse and Frank were now a part of. During this massacre, the group also collected the scalps from these Union soldiers.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should just put like a trigger warning on our whole episode.
Yeah, this one's pretty bad.
Yeah. And I tried picking like the subdued one.
Well, next week you didn't.
Yeah. No.
It's real bad.
I haven't even started researching that yet.
It's going to give you nightmares.
Ugh, I'm behind on my research, but oh well. During this massacre, oh no, I already said that. Sorry. The same group then attacked a train carrying Union soldiers who were no longer in active duty.
They captured a what?
A train that was carrying Union soldiers.
Okay. It sounded like you said train weird, and I was like, what? Go ahead.
No,
sorry.
They attacked a train carrying Union soldiers that were no longer in active duty.
Okay.
During this raid, they killed around 100 men.
Holy crap.
And Jesse and Frank rode down the remaining men, shooting anyone who even tried surrendering.
Jeez.
And the really sad thing about this is that these poor men were injured and wounded, and that's why they were no longer actively fighting in the war. Like, they were going home.
Oh gosh. That's
Yeah, and then,
awful.
yeah, they were going home to their families, only to be hideously attacked when they were at their most vulnerable. Like, it's
Oh,
horrible.
that is awful.
Like, what a terrible way to go.
Yeah, that's really bad. Poor
Yeah.
things.
Like, you think that you're out and you're going
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Dang.
Little shitheads.
Poor things.
Anyways, moving on. The James men were bad people,
Yeah, sounds like it.
and they did a lot of bad, terrible things during the Civil War. Once the war was over and slavery was abolished, yay,
Woohoo!
it was a lot of bad for the James family because with the abolishing of slavery, they lost a lot of their money, and Frank and Jesse turned to crime. And this is probably going to be real stupid, but why would they lose money if they lost their slaves?
Probably because, oh, that was loud. Probably a couple things. Probably one is that they didn't have the free labor anymore. So they probably couldn't get as much income. And then I know they would count slaves as like money. So like you're worth
Okay.
this much, you're worth this much. So if they lost, that'd be like, you know.
Okay.
Plus they probably had some of their property seized, I would think.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse was shot during the war in his chest. Haha. But unfortunately, he was nursed back to health by his first cousin, who he later ended up marrying.
That's disgusting.
Yep. Um, Lucky for our listening ears, Jesse was all healed up thanks to his cousin.
Oh, so
Thanks, girl.
nice.
Thanks, girl. And he participated in a jailbreak, which freed many members of his guerrilla gang.
Of course.
Once the leader of this gang was eventually killed, haha, one down, Jesse took over as the gang's leader, where he led many bank robberies. One bank robbery ended with the town's mayor being tragically killed.
Oh.
How shitty for him. Over the years, Frank and Jesse's gang led many robberies, and their gang diminished in numbers due to death in action, arrests, and lynchings.
What was with people and lynchings back then?
I have no idea. Like, how do you even think of that?
Like they really liked it. That was like their thing.
Yeah, especially like tar and feathering. Like,
Yeah. Some of the medieval, we should do an
ugh.
episode on that, medieval torture techniques.
Yeah, I think I have one for my friend Rhonda suggested, like something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
Because
down
they were
for
real
that.
fucked up back then.
They were. It's horrible. Anywho, due to the small scale of their crimes, Jesse's gang went unnoticed for the most part until December of 1869. The reason they were then put on the map at that point was due to Jesse being a twat nugget. Okay.
Good. That was good writing, Jessica. I like that.
Right? I just wrote what I felt, okay? During a bank robbery, Jesse shot and murdered a bank cashier. Why, do you ask? Well, he mistook the bank cashier as being a Union officer that killed his previous gang boss, Bloody Bill. But it wasn't the same guy. It wasn't the right guy.
Idiot.
Yeah, he's a dumbass. A large manhunt was then issued for the James gang. However, they were so skilled in avoiding detection that they then became legends for this ability.
Oh, geez. Well, you figure when your whole life is basically like
Yeah,
hiding and jumping out at people.
yeah, exactly. Um, the reason Jesse's fame rose to such great heights was actually due to the mutually beneficial relationship that he had with the publishers of the Kansas City Star, which was a firm pro-Confederate paper.
I was gonna say probably to the Confederates, he was like a hero.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a pro-Confederate paper.
Okay.
The editor of this paper saw a really good opportunity with Jesse, and he saw that he could be the symbol for the resistance, kind of like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games.
Except he was on the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just what it reminded me of.
Mm-hmm.
And this dude gave Jesse whatever print space he required in order to get word of his rebellions against the Republic out to the public. Cool, cool, cool. What a guy.
Yeah. It's like you lost. Move on.
Yeah, exactly. So they then became known as the James Younger Gang.
Okay.
Which consisted of 8 men. They then robbed banks all over the region for several years, trying to gain as much attention as possible of their exploits, portraying themselves as Robin Hoods, heroes of the Confederacy.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. I wrote LOL. Jesse James allegedly stated once, quote, "We are bold robbers. I am proud of the name, for Alexander the Great was a bold robber, and Julius Caesar and Napoleon Bonaparte." Unquote.
All right, when you're comparing yourselves to like great historical men, like maybe try and fit that head in that door. That's too big.
Yeah, just a little bit. Where am I? At one point in the year 1881, there was a reward for the capture of the James Younger gang, more specifically for Jesse or Frank James.
They went right to the top with that.
Exactly. The reward for their capture was listed at, can you guess?
Back then or now? Time,
Back
money.
then.
$100.
$5,000.
Oh.
In today's currency, that would be $128,000 and 226. Wow. I can't do this.
Do you need help?
$128,226.
Gotcha. That's a
Was
lot.
that good?
Yes, that sounds right.
Wow. That was stupid. Okay.
I'm assuming you want me to take that out.
No, I don't even care at this point. That's actually like a really small amount. Like I didn't anticipate, like I expected it to be a lot more than that, you know?
Oh, I thought that was a high amount, but maybe I'm just crazy.
$128,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but whatever. Along with the banks, they also robbed stagecoaches, public events, and trains.
Okay. Sounds
And
on par.
yeah, exactly. There were other outlaws during that time, otherwise known as the railroad barons. So it made robbing banks and stuff like really tricky for
Gotcha.
Jesse's gang. And these railroad barons had enlisted the help of a private army, which were known as the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Oh, yeah. We know about them.
Yeah, which made it even more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that don't know, the Pinkerton National Detective Agency was founded in 1850 by a Scottish man by the name of Alan Pinkerton, and at the height of its power, it was the largest private law enforcement organization in the world. Their services included security management, risk management, consulting, investigations, employment screening, protective services, security, crisis management, and intelligence services. It is currently a subsidiary of Securitas AB.
Oh, okay.
So it is still active.
Yeah, I know it's still active. I didn't know it was a subsidiary, though.
Yes. And if you're interested, you can go to Pinkerton.com to learn more about them. Their website is actually pretty cool. And their little motto is so creepy, but it's "We never sleep."
That is
Which,
really creepy.
yeah, but like it's also not good because if you don't sleep, then you're gonna hallucinate and then you're also gonna die.
And probably mess up.
Exactly. So kind of badass, kind of dumb. So
Kind of creepy.
kind of creepy for sure. Very creepy. But so these creepy ass men wanted the James Younger gang as much as anyone else. And in fact, the $5,000 reward poster said to contact the Pinkertons Detective Agency and Union Pacific Railroad Agency with any information on the gang members. So they wanted these men dead or alive, I guess. When the Pinkertons were given the authority to capture Jesse James, they unfortunately moved a little too quickly, and they were caught in an ambush where a deputy sheriff and other agency men were shot in the action.
Oh.
Apparently, I move a little too quickly, and I can't read words. I've been off for 2 months.
It's tough reading, man.
It is, honestly. After the failed attack, Alan Pinkerton himself led a manhunt against Jesse. And this, unfortunately, ended up being a surprise attack at the James farm, which ended with Jesse's younger half-brother being killed.
Oh, poor guy.
He was only 4 years old.
Oh, baby.
I know. I expected it to be a teenager, and then I read somewhere else that he was only 4, and it's oh no.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And then his mom was also injured, which required her arm to be amputated.
Oh, geez.
Because a firebomb was thrown into the house.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Alan Pinkerton denied burning the house down on purpose. However, through research about a century later, it was found out that he bragged about the plan in a letter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you write it down, you can't really deny it.
Exactly. Don't write shit down.
Yeah.
Silly men. Anyways, after this failed attempt, the Pinkertons actually withdrew from trying to capture them.
They gave up?
They gave up. I mean, I guess this was probably really bad publicity for them, right? They killed a little boy and injured an innocent woman. So.
Yeah. That's true.
After this attack, Jesse James obviously went on a killing spree.
Well, I'm sure he felt invincible.
Exactly. And he was also super angry that they killed his brother and hurt his mom. So.
Yeah.
Several men who were suspected of working with the Pinkertons were later found dead in their homes.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And the James Younger gang then went after more banks and properties, but more specifically, ones that were owned by Republicans.
Oh.
The Northfield bank robbery would be their most famous of these heists, and the robbery occurred on September 7th, 1876. So 2 members of the James Younger gang stood outside waiting while the rest of them went into the bank to get the safe open. Now, I don't know if this was just ballsy or stupid, but the bank clerk lied while they had a knife to their throat.
Oh,
and the bank clerk told the gang that the safe was on a timed lock, so they couldn't get into it.
Oh.
Now, I guess it was going to happen either way, given that Jesse James was on a rampage at this point. But the poor clerk was so severely beaten that his skull cracked.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, they cracked the poor guy's skull.
Jeez.
And while all of this was going on inside of the bank, outside of the bank, people were growing very suspicious of the 2 men standing outside of the bank, so they started a confrontation.
Oh, goodness.
The men outside shot their guns into the air to clear the street, and this obviously turned into a gunfight. Dedoy. And 2 outlaws and a passerby were killed in this fight.
Oh.
The men inside of the bank made a run for it, taking time to shoot the poor clerk that lied to them and tied them up at the scene. So he is kind of a hero because he delayed them so long that the cops were finally able to get to the scene.
Gotcha.
Which was really good. Because otherwise there wouldn't have been any injured and dead outlaws.
Right.
Obviously escaped from this because they had to survive. They actually just continued to rob everywhere. He retired from the outlaw life, and he moved away to Virginia in hopes of finding some solace. Jesse, though, did the opposite and continued being a badass criminal. And he created a new gang, which was hard for him to keep together. He actually even allegedly killed one of his own, so they wouldn't give him up to the authorities. Because why not kill your own people?
That's awful.
Yeah. By 1882, Jesse was living with the last 2 members of his group, Charlie and Robert Ford. According to Ford brothers, Jesse had made some inappropriate comments towards their sister, and there was that hefty $5,000 fine still on his head, dead or alive. On April 3rd, 1882, Jesse got up and ate breakfast, bringing his revolvers to the table with him because he sensed that there was some trouble.
Oh.
As the account goes, Jesse decided to dust off a picture in the living room, and to do so, he had to step up on a table to do that.
Okay.
As he did this, Robert Ford walked up behind him with Jesse James's gun in his hand and shot him in the back of the head.
Oh, wow.
So at the age of 35, Jesse James was dead.
I feel like back in the day, that was like not a good way to do it. Like shooting someone in the back. Like I feel like that would have been.
Well, it's very cowardly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But either way, Jesse James probably should have been stopped. So
yeah, but at the age of 35, he was dead.
Wow.
The story seems really wild to me because I would have imagined like this legendary figure to go down in like a hail of bullets, kind of like Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Not like cowardly in the back of the head.
At his house, dusting a picture.
Yeah. And his wife and children were in a separate room at the time as well.
Poor
so
things.
They were there. Yeah. And to their dismay, the Ford brothers were actually arrested and detained when they brought Jesse's body in to claim their reward.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they were charged with murder because they were outlaws and criminals and had murdered people.
Oh, yeah.
And they were sentenced to hang. However, Missouri's governor issued a pardon for them and they were released, and they received their reward in the process.
Okay.
So the reason he released them was because he had actually previously struck up a deal with Robert Ford to kill Jesse James in exchange for this reward.
Okay.
Yeah. So like you and I, people were fascinated by Jesse James's murder. Like people were fascinated with death back then.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he was such a famous person, right?
Right.
So the Ford brothers traveled around and reenacted the event of his death.
People back then were crazy.
Yeah, but it actually wasn't well received due to the fact that Robert Ford shot him in the back.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like that reenacting that was like, probably not the best idea there, buddy.
Yeah, no. So it didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
Charlie Ford, Robert's brother, eventually committed suicide 2 years later.
Oh, wow.
And Robert Ford was shot to death in Colorado in 1894. So 12 years after Jesse's death.
Wow.
It was also believed that Jesse James actually faked his own death. And over the years, many men claimed to be him. So his body was actually exhumed and DNA testing was done, which concluded that it was in fact Jesse James. So
Okay.
he hadn't faked his own death.
Gotcha. So everybody else stopped trying to be him.
Yeah, exactly. Fun fact, he was nicknamed Dingus. The reason he received this nickname was because he apparently didn't like to curse, like swear,
Oh.
which seems weird for someone who scalps people.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody has their line, right?
Yeah, so maybe this nickname was earned prior to the age of 16.
Maybe.
But it's because he said, quote, "That's the Dodd Dingus pistol I ever saw." Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Dodd Dingus pistol I ever saw.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my goodness. I shouldn't do Missouri accents. I don't even know what they are.
I liked it, though. I liked your
Perfect.
rendition of it.
Perfect. I've never met someone from there, so
I haven't either, to be honest.
no. Not so funny fact. He almost overdosed on morphine once, and it was speculated to be a suicide attempt.
Oh, that's sad.
Yes. On September 26th, 1872, Jesse accidentally shot a little girl and wrote anonymously in a public letter, quote, "It is true that I shot a little girl, though it was not intentional, and I am very sorry that the child was shot. And if the parents will give me their address through the columns of the Kansas City Weekly Times, I will send them money to pay her doctor's bill," unquote. Which honestly seems a little off from his MO, but like, I don't know, right? It's weird. But I mean, maybe
I
it's because
know.
he had children of his own and
Yeah.
he,
And, every criminal has some type of criminal code that they don't cross. And maybe his was kids.
yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, they might not have their own opinions, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and he was more so about the revenge storyline anyway, so
Right.
he
Right.
didn't really fit that bill. So,
Mm-hmm.
and once he was dead, Jesse's own mother charged people so that they could take pebbles from his grave.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
His own mom.
his own mom needed to
Jeez.
get that dollar bill in. Needed to get that moolah. But anyways, that is my story on Jesse James.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
No.
I knew he robbed banks. That's about all I
Yeah,
knew.
I didn't know much of anything, so I'm glad. Like,
Yeah.
that was fascinating to me. So I hope it was fascinating to everybody else.
I'm sure it was to me. I liked it.
Perfect.
Well, thanks for hanging in there with us, everyone, for those episodes we recorded in December and played throughout the month of January and February.
Yeah.
And like we said, we're back now recording each week and releasing episodes each week. So we hope you enjoy them. And if you have any suggestions for us, feel free to email us at historiesandmysteries515@gmail.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook at Histories and Mysteries. And we're currently in the works of a website that Jessica's working on.
I know we said that like a couple months ago, but it didn't work out. But this time it did work out, and I'm in the process of making it. I'm almost done. So I'm
We
hoping
already
within the
paid for
next
it,
few
so
weeks.
it's coming.
Exactly. So I'm hoping within the next few weeks, but it's very hard to research and work on a website and deal with a baby at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
haven't even had a chance to go in and look at it.
yeah, it's like 90% done. I just have to add like tweak some things. So,
Cool.
And we're also now on a few new podcast
Yes.
platforms such as Stitcher. We're on Verbal. I don't know what the fuck that is. VURBL. I didn't even know that we were on there. I got an email about it. So there we go. We're also on Pandora, which I don't know what that is because we don't have it in Canada, but we're on it.
Yeah, Pandora's big here.
Perfect. And we're also on iHeartRadio. And I also wanted to thank Rochelle for being a listener. She works for Haunted Walks, which is here in Canada. And my husband and I go on their haunted walks every year for our anniversary. So it was really cool to find out that she was a fan. And I appreciate that she listens because she's very nice. I talked to her for a little bit. So
yeah, we got really excited, Rochelle, because I think you're one of our listeners that neither of us knew prior. Like a
Yeah.
lot of our listeners we know. And so we got really excited and like, you know, we're famous now. So
Exactly. And honestly, thank you to everybody that is listening
yes.
and has kept listening. And if you're a new listener, thank you so much. If you reach out to us, we can thank you personally on the podcast. But yeah, we just really appreciate everybody listening and
Yes, we do.
tuning in. And if you want to rate us, it would really, really help
Oh
us
gosh, yes,
out.
it would.
I only know that you can rate on Apple Podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
but you might be able to rate everywhere else too and review. I just know you can't do it on Spotify. But
Yeah,
if you
I'm
want
not
to
sure.
recommend us to your friends, if you want to share our posts on Instagram or Facebook, just anything helps get us out there. It would be really appreciated. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Awesome.
thanks for listening. It's nice to be back.
I know, it's great to be back.
It's weird. I know we had so many technical issues, but I'm
Yeah,
glad
we
we're
did.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy. It's nice to be back. So, anyways, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.